An old Roman scholar is reading by candlelight. It is evening at the villa at Misenum, the Roman naval base, the western tip of the Bay of Naples. The villa is on a low hill above the harbour, and the harbour at this hour is quiet. The galleys are tied up. The fires under the bathhouses have burned down to embers. The slaves who tend the lamps have done their rounds and gone to bed. There is a single window in the room. The shutters are open. The night air is cool. The night smells of the sea and of cypress and of the wood smoke from the cooking fires down in the harbour town. The room is small. The walls are plastered. The plaster is painted with a thin border of red and a pattern of leaves. The pattern is older than he is. His father chose it. He has never repainted it. He likes that the room still belongs partly to his father. The candle is on a low bronze stand on the floor beside his chair. The flame is steady. The flame is the size of an almond. The wax pools around the base of the wick and spills slowly down the candle's body. The wax cools as it falls. The wax leaves a soft white track down the side of the candle and along the lip of the bronze stand. The smell of the warm wax is in the room. It is a good smell. He has smelled it every evening for 40 years. His name is Pliny. He's 55 years old. He has spent his life reading. He has spent his life writing. He's written a book about everything in the world. 37 scrolls. Tens of thousands of facts. Plants. Stars. Stones. The shape of the earth. The names of fish. The deeds of emperors. He calls it Naturalis Historia. It is the largest single book the Roman world will produce. He is not at the end of his life. He does not know that yet. He thinks he has more books to write. He thinks he will be at this desk for many more evenings. He thinks the candle on the bronze stand will burn down many more times before it burns down for him. Tonight, he is reading what came before Rome. The scroll on his table is a survey of Italian geography. The land south of him, the Bay of Naples, the hills that ring the bay, the harbour cities that fill the shoreline. One of those cities is the town the scroll calls Pompeii. He has been there. He has walked it. He has seen its forum and its temples and its dye works. He has eaten its fish in the harbour taverns. He has bought wine from a vintner outside the city walls, whose family has made wine on that ridge for 6 generations. He knows the smell of the basalt streets in the afternoon heat. He knows the cry of the fish sellers in the early morning. He has had Pompeii under his sandals more times than he can count. But the scroll on his table tonight is not about the city he has walked. The scroll is about the city before the city, the town the Etruscan founders built, the harbour town Rome would inherit and call Pompeii. He picks up his stylus. It is a thin bronze rod with a flat end for smoothing wax tablets and a sharp end for marking them. He uses it to mark his place on the scroll. He runs the flat end along the line he has just finished reading. The papyrus is dry. The line scrapes faintly. The scrape is the only sound in the room besides his breathing and the soft hiss of the candle. He sets the stylus down. He picks up a smaller scroll, a second one, the one about the Etruscan tribes themselves. He unrolls it carefully. The papyrus is older than the first. It cracks faintly along an old fold. He smooths it flat. He reads. The Etruscan tribes are the first builders. They came down to the Bay of Naples long before Rome existed, long before Romulus and Remus were a story, long before the 7 hills had names. The Etruscan people were on this land when the land was still finding its shape. They were not one tribe. They were many. The Samnites in the high country, the Herculaneum in the mountain passes, the Frentani on the Adriatic side, the Marsi by the inland lakes. They spoke a language related to Latin, but not Latin. The Romans, when they came later, found that Oscan words and Latin words had the same bones underneath, but different skins. The Romans could half understand what the Oscans said. The Oscans could half understand what the Romans said. They could trade, and they could fight, and they could marry across the language. But the language itself was its own thing. The Oscans wrote it on stones. Pliny has seen the stones. He has seen them at Pompeii, set into walls that the later Romans built around them. He has seen them at the Temple of Apollo. He has seen them on the base of an old statue that no one remembers the name of. The stones have letters carved into them. The letters are not Greek letters. They are not Latin letters. They are an alphabet of their own. Some of the letters look like Latin letters that have been turned sideways. Some of them look like nothing he has ever seen. He has tried to read the stones. He cannot. The shapes of the letters are familiar enough that he feels he should be able to. The sounds the letters carry are not familiar at all. The words they spell are gone with the people who spoke them. Their language is on stones we cannot read. He sets the smaller scroll down for a moment. He thinks about that. The thought is heavy and slow. The candle on the bronze stand hisses softly. The pool of wax around the wick has spread a little. He thinks. The Oscans were the people whose language Rome had forgotten. Their words for these streets are lost. Their songs for the harbour are lost. Their prayers are lost. Their names for the mountain across the bay are lost. They did not name it Vesuvius. That name came later. The Oscans called the mountain something else. The something else is one of the things on the stones we cannot read. The mountain has a name on the wall of an old shrine somewhere in Pompeii. A name no one alive can say aloud. He thinks about that as he picks the scroll up again. The Oscans built on the volcanic soil because the volcanic soil grew everything. The soil grew vines the size of a man's arm. The soil grew wheat in 2 harvests a year. The soil grew olives the colour of dark honey. The soil grew chestnut trees that fed a village from a single tree's autumn. The soil grew citrus and quince and pomegranate and walnut. The soil grew herbs that grew nowhere else on the peninsula. The Oscan farmers walked their fields and pulled up the soil between their fingers and felt it warm even on cool mornings. They did not know why the soil was warm. They did not know why it grew everything. They lived in the shadow of the mountain. They did not understand that the soil and the mountain were the same thing, wearing 2 faces. They built Pompeii, where 2 rivers met the sea. The Sarno River flowing in from the inland valleys, a smaller stream coming down from the high ground above. The 2 waters met just inside the harbour mouth. The harbour mouth opened onto the bay. The bay opened onto the world. They built the first stone walls around the town. The stones were quarried from the local limestone. They were rough cut. They were heavy. The Oscan masons stacked them without mortar, fitting each stone into the gap above the last. The walls did not need mortar. The stones were heavy enough to hold each other in place. The walls would still be there centuries later. The Romans would build other walls on top of them and not bother to take the Oscan walls down. They built the first roads in, wide dirt tracks running into the town from the surrounding farmland. The tracks were beaten down by Oscan feet, by Oscan oxen pulling Oscan carts, by Oscan children running between Oscan houses on summer afternoons, by Oscan dogs trotting alongside their masters, by the slow processions on festival days when the Oscan priests carried the Oscan gods through the streets to the temples, the streets that the Romans would later pave with black basalt were Oscan streets first. This was 1,000 years before Pliny was born. He pauses. He drinks water from a clay cup on the desk. The water is cold. The cup is glazed white, with a thin blue line painted around the rim. The cup is old. It was his mother's. He has used it for a long time. He sets the cup back down. The candle smokes for a moment, and settles. The flame steadies. The room is quiet. He picks up his stylus again. He writes a note in the margin of the smaller scroll. A short note. 6 words. He writes the words slowly, because the papyrus is old, and he does not want to tear it. The note will not survive the year. But tonight, he writes it. He sets the stylus down again. He reads on. He sets the smaller scroll down. He picks up the larger one again. The geography survey. He moves a finger across the line that names the bay. The bay is a drowned crater. It does not remember being a mountain, but it was, once. The whole Bay of Naples is the wound of an older eruption. Centuries ago. Centuries before. Centuries before centuries. A mountain stood here. The mountain blew itself open. The shape it left in the earth was a circle. The sea filled the circle. The circle became the bay. The bay was a drowned crater that did not remember being a mountain. Pliny lets that sit. He thinks about it slowly. He has read this passage before, several times, in several scrolls. Each time he reads it, the same picture arrives in his mind. He sees the older mountain. He sees it standing where the water now is. He sees the geologic groan of the earth at the moment it opens. He sees the air go dark with ash. He sees the slopes collapse inward and the sea rush in to fill the gap. He hears the water hiss as it strikes the hot stones. He imagines the steam rising for years afterward, the sea slowly settling, the new shore taking on its shape. He has no record of this happening. There were no Roman historians. There were no Oscan historians. There were no Greek historians. There were not even people to remember. The eruption that made the Bay of Naples happened in a time before the first villages on the peninsula. But the bay is there. The crater is there. The shape of it is the shape of the wound. He has written about this in Naturalis Historia. He has written that the bay is a mark left by fire. Some of his readers do not believe him. Some of his readers think the bay was made by the gods. He does not argue with them. He just keeps writing. The hills around the bay are the leftovers, the high rims, the places where the old mountain's edge held. The Sorrentine Peninsula to the south is one rim. The high promontory, where his villa now stands at Misenum, is another. The Phlegrean fields to the west are another, with their boiling pools and their hissing vents and their sulphur smell that has not gone away in any of the 1,000 years of Greek and Roman history he can read about. And across the water, the mountain that did not blow itself open in that ancient time, the mountain that the Oscans walked in the shadow of, is still standing. The mountain across the bay. Pliny knows what makes mountains like this. He has written about it. He has interviewed sailors who have seen the volcanoes of Sicily. He has read Theophrastus on Etna. He has read Empedocles He has read the older Greek philosophers on the underworld fires that they believed ran beneath the earth. He has his own theory. He thinks the mountains here are connected by fire underground. He thinks the fire moves through them like blood through a body. When one mountain quiets, another wakes. When one mountain rests, another stirs. He does not know if he is right. He is reading for evidence. The scroll tells him what the soil tells anyone who farms it. The soil is dark. The soil was rich. The soil grew everything because the soil had been a mountain once. Each old eruption laid down a new layer of fertility. The Oscans planted in it. The Romans plant in it now. The vines in Pliny's own garden grew in soil that was, a long time ago, fire. The candle is steady. The wick has settled into its long, quiet burn. The flame is smaller now than it was when he sat down. The shadows in the room have shifted as the candle has burned down. The shadow of his hand on the scroll is darker than it was. The shadow of the bronze stand on the wall has stretched a little longer. The shadow of his own head, falling across the table from the candlelight behind him, is the shape of an old man bent over a scroll. He shifts. The chair creaks under him. The creak is brief. He moves his finger to a different line on the scroll, a line about the harbour cities. Cumae, Naples, Pompeii, Herculaneum, Stabiae. Each of them old. Each of them built on the rim of the drowned crater, on the slopes of the surviving mountain, on the volcanic soil that grew everything because it had been a mountain once. He pauses on the name Herculaneum. The scroll says Hercules founded it. He does not believe that. He believes the Oscans founded it. He believes the Greeks who came later attached the Hercules story to a town that already existed. He has written this opinion in another scroll. He has been criticized for it. He does not care. He moves his finger again. He pauses on Pompeii. He lets his finger rest on the name. The town that became the city. He was a young man the first time he walked Pompeii. He was a Roman officer. He was inspecting the harbour for the navy. He was 25, maybe 26. He remembers the heat. He remembers the heavy scent of the dye works on the eastern side of town. The vats of murex purple and saffron yellow steaming in the afternoon sun. He remembers a small boy selling figs from a basket near the forum. He remembers buying a fig from the boy and eating it as he walked. The town was already an old Roman colony by then. It had been Roman for over 100 years, but it did not feel Roman. It felt Oscan still. The streets had Oscan names that the Romans had not bothered to change. The local Latin had Oscan words mixed in. The pottery in the market had Oscan shapes. The temples were the Oscan temples that the Romans had relabeled with Latin gods. The temple of Apollo had been a temple of some Oscan god of light, and the Apollo statue had been placed on the same plinth where the Oscan god had stood. He thought, at 25, that the town was wearing two faces, the Oscan face that built the place, and the Roman face that the empire had painted over the top. He thinks tonight, at 55, that the town is wearing three faces now, or maybe four, or maybe more, because over 150 years of Roman rule, the town has had time to grow new layers on top of the Roman layer. Each generation of citizens lived in the buildings the last generation built. Each generation paved over the last generation's streets. Each generation renamed the corners and renamed the alleys and renamed the small shrines. Each generation forgot a little more of what the founders had named. The harbour town that Rome would inherit was already old when Rome was a village. He sets the scroll down again. He thinks about the people he has met in Pompeii. The fish seller at the harbour who taught him the names of the local fish. The woman at the dye works whose hands were stained the colour of a deep evening sky from 40 years of working the indigo vats. The vintner outside the city walls whose wine Pliny still buys. The same family Pliny has bought wine from for 30 years. The freedman who runs a bakery on the western side of town. The young scribe at the basilica who once helped Pliny find a missing tax record. The old man who tended the public baths at the Stabian gate, who knew everyone in the city by name and by the year they were born. None of them know they are Oscan. They are Roman now. They have been Roman for generations. They speak Latin. They worship Roman gods. They pay Roman taxes. They watch Roman gladiators in the Roman arena. Their children are taught Roman history in the Roman schools. The dead are buried in Roman tombs along the Roman roads outside the Roman gates. But the streets they walk are Oscan streets. The walls of their houses sit on Oscan foundations. The harbour where they catch their fish is the Oscan harbour. The market where they buy their bread is the Oscan market. The basalt under their feet is the basalt that was laid down on the dirt tracks the Oscan oxen beat into the ground. And the soil that feeds them is the soil the Oscans found rich, which the Oscans did not know was rich, because the soil had once been a mountain. The mountain across the bay. Pliny picks up his stylus. He turns it slowly in his fingers. The bronze is cool. He has held this stylus for 20 years. The wood handle is dark from his palm. He thinks, this is what I have not said clearly enough in Naturalis Historia, that a place has many faces, that a place wears the face of its founders, and the face of its conquerors, and the face of its own forgetting, that a man walking in Pompeii at noon is walking on more layers than he knows. The basalt under his sandals is younger than the dirt under the basalt. The dirt is younger than the foundation stones under the dirt. The foundation stones are younger than the volcanic ash that made the soil rich. The volcanic ash is younger than the older eruption that made the bay. And the older eruption is itself only one chapter in the history of the mountain. The man walking in Pompeii at noon is walking on 1,000 years of stories he cannot read. Pliny sets the stylus down. He picks up the larger scroll again. He turns it forward to a new section. He reads on. The candle has burned past midnight. He moves his hand to a different scroll. A third one. This one is about the wars, the Samnite Wars. Rome's long fight to control the hill country of central and southern Italy. The Romans against the Samnite Confederation, which included some of the Oscan-speaking tribes. The wars lasted decades. 3 full wars. The first in the 4th century before our story, the second a generation later, the third another generation after that. By the time the third war ended, the Samnites were broken. The hill country was Roman. The harbour cities were Roman. Pompeii was Roman. Pliny has read these wars many times. He has read them in the original Roman accounts, written by the generals who fought them. He has read them in the later Greek summaries, written by historians like Polybius, who look back on the Roman conquest from a calmer century. He has read the small details in the campaign reports stored in the imperial archives. He knows the names of the battles, the terrain at Lortulai, where the Romans were caught in the pass, the high ground at Sentinum, where the legions held, the hill at Aquilonia, where the Third War ended. He thinks about the men who fought those wars. The Roman soldiers were farmers from Latium who put down their ploughs for 6 months a year and picked up their swords. The Samnite soldiers were shepherds from the hills who fought because their fathers fought and their fathers' fathers fought. They were not strangers to each other. They traded with each other in the years between the wars. They spoke half a common language. They knew each other's faces, and they killed each other for decades. But the conquest did not end with the Third War. 2 centuries later, there was another rebellion, the Social War, the Romans called it. The Allied Italian cities, including Pompeii, fought for their independence and for the right to be Roman citizens. They lost. Rome won. After the Social War, Rome did not destroy Pompeii. Rome did something else. Rome made Pompeii a Roman colony in its formal sense. Rome sent retired Roman soldiers to live in Pompeii, the veterans of Sulla's army, men who had fought for Sulla in the civil wars of the previous decade. Rome rewarded them with land and houses in Pompeii. They took the best houses. They took the best farms. The native Pompeians, the Oscan-descended Pompeians, whose grandfathers had fought against Rome in the Social War, had to share their city with the Roman veterans who had defeated them. This was 80 years before Pliny was born. He has read all of this before. He is reading it again tonight because something is bothering him about the Oscan town beneath the Roman city. He cannot say what. The candle is low. The night is heavy. The wax on the bronze stand has built up into a small, soft mound. The flame has settled to a smaller, steadier light. He thinks, the people walking the streets of Pompeii tonight are the descendants of 2 peoples, the Oscan descendants who built the foundations, the Roman descendants of the veterans who took the houses. Their grandfathers fought each other. Their great-grandfathers killed each other in the streets the descendants now walk. The blood is in the soil. The blood is in the basalt. They have made peace by forgetting. That is how all peace happens. Forgetting. The lamps in the city are mostly out by now. The taverns are closed. The dogs have stopped barking. Pompeii sleeps. The harbour is quiet. The fishing boats out on the bay have hauled their nets and dropped anchor. The mountain across the bay is dark. Pliny rolls the scrolls. He rolls the geography survey first. He ties it with its leather cord. He rolls the Oscan tribe scroll second. He ties that one too. He rolls the Samnite War scroll last. He ties that one carefully because the cord is fraying. He stacks the 3 scrolls on the corner of the table. He picks up his stylus and his clay water cup and his small dish of ink and sets each of them in its place. The desk is in order. The desk is always in order before he leaves it for the night. His father taught him that. He has done it every night for 40 years. The candle is a finger of wax. The flame is low. The night outside the window is the deep night that comes before dawn. He stands. He stretches. The chair creaks again as it releases the weight of him. His back hurts a little. His knees hurt a little. He walks to the window. The bay is black. The cities along the shore are dots of lamplight, faint, scattered. The fishing boats out on the water carry small lamps too. He can see 1 or 2, moving slowly, swinging at anchor. The fishermen know the currents better than they know their own hands. They will sleep on their boats until the first light of the morning. then haul their nets again. The mountain across the bay is a silhouette, darker than the sky. The sky has the first faint paling of the hour before dawn. The mountain stands black against it. He looks at the mountain for a long moment. He thinks. Tomorrow, he will read about the earthquake, the one from his own lifetime, the one that hit Pompeii when he was 38. He has the dispatches in a sealed box somewhere in the villa. He has been meaning to go back through them. He will do it tomorrow. He will read what was lost. He will read what was rebuilt. He will read about the city that spent 17 years putting itself back together. He will read about the people who, even now, walk the streets of a city that was once broken. He thinks about how much they have forgotten. The candle gutters. He pinches it out with his finger and thumb. The wick hisses for a half second, then goes silent. The room is dark. Outside, across the bay, the mountain does not move. The mountain has not moved in centuries. The Oscans walked in its shadow. The Romans walk in its shadow. The fishermen on the bay tonight are working in its shadow. They cannot see it. The night is too dark, but it is there. It has always been there. The old Roman scholar is awake. It is morning at the villa at Misenum. The sun has been up for an hour. The bay outside the window is silver. The fishing boats that work through the night have come back in. The smaller boats are tied up at the harbour stones. The larger boats are still gliding the last half mile. Their oarsmen moving slowly, their nets folded. Pliny has slept 4 hours. He does not need much. He never has. He is in the same room where the candle burned out before dawn. The candle is gone. The slaves have removed it. The wax pool is gone from the bronze stand. The bronze stand is polished. The 3 scrolls from the night before are stacked on the corner of his table, each tied with its leather cord, each in its place. A clay cup of water has been set out, a small dish of olives, a piece of bread. He has not touched any of them. In the corner of the room, on a low shelf, there is a wooden box. The box is the size of a small basket. It is plain. The wood is dark with age. There's a thin band of bronze around the lid. The bronze is tarnished. There is a wax seal across the seam where the lid meets the body. The wax is grey. The wax has been there for years. He stands. He walks to the shelf. He carries the box back to his table. He sets it down beside the 3 scrolls. He sits. For a long moment, he does not break the seal. He looks at the seal. He looks at the box. He looks at the morning light coming in through the open shutters. The light falls across the wood. The light is warm. The light is gentle. The light has nothing to do with what is inside the box. The box holds the dispatches from the year of the earthquake. He has not opened the box in 17 years. He picks up his stylus. He uses the sharp end. He works the point under the lip of the wax. The wax cracks. The crack is small. Then he works the stylus along the seam. The wax breaks in 2 pieces. Both pieces fall onto the table. They are dry. They make a soft tap. He sets the stylus down. He lifts the lid of the box. The dispatches are inside. They are folded. They are stacked. The papyrus is old. The ink is faded. The corners are dog-eared. There are perhaps 30 pieces. Some are short military reports. Some are private letters. Some are official communications from the governors of nearby cities. Some are notes Pliny himself made at the time, his own handwriting still visible. He picks up the top piece. He smooths it on the table. He begins to read. The first dispatch is dated 5 days after the event. The event was the morning of February 5th, in the 9th year of the Emperor Nero. The earthquake hit at dawn. The earthquake hit hard. The earthquake hit a long time, longer than any earthquake anyone in Pompeii had ever felt. The ground moved. The ground did not stop moving. Buildings came down. Roof tiles came down. Walls came down. Columns came down. Sheep on the hillsides outside the city walls fell into invisible cracks in the ground and were never seen again. Pliny was 38 that year. He was a Roman officer. He was stationed at the time in Misenum, in the same villa where he sits now. He received the first dispatch by courier on the 5th day after the earthquake. The courier had ridden through the night. The courier was exhausted. The courier handed Pliny the rolled papyrus and then stood quietly while Pliny read. Pliny remembers the dispatch. He is reading it again now. The dispatch is short. It is written in the clean military hand of a junior officer. The junior officer is reporting what he has seen. He has seen the Forum of Pompeii fallen on its side. He has seen the temple of Jupiter cracked from roof to floor. He has seen the columns of the basilica leaning. He has seen the marble heads of the gods knocked off their bodies and lying in the dust. He has seen the great public fountain dry because the aqueduct that fed it has split somewhere in the hills, and the water is going into the ground instead of into the city. He has seen the homes of the wealthy with their roofs caved in. He has seen the homes of the poor with their walls fallen outward into the streets. He has seen the bakeries where the morning loaves were still rising in the ovens at the moment the earth opened. He has seen the dye works where the vats of indigo and saffron and murex tipped over and poured coloured water down the basalt streets like rivers from a wound. He has seen the dogs that have not stopped barking since dawn. He has seen the goats that have stopped giving milk. He has seen the casualties, the dead and the dying, the children pulled from collapsed bedrooms, the old men pinned under fallen beams, the slaves crushed in the bakery, the freedmen crushed in the counting houses, the priests crushed in their temples. He has seen people sitting in the streets, staring at the walls that used to be their houses, not yet weeping, not yet able to weep, the shock still over them like a second roof. Pliny remembers reading this dispatch the first time. He remembers being 38. He remembers being shocked by it. He remembers thinking that the earthquake was a thing that happens, a normal thing, a thing the gods do, a thing the philosophers explain in their treatises on the underworld fires. He remembers writing about it later in Naturalis Historia. He remembers naming it in the section on natural disturbances. He did not understand it then. He thinks now, reading it again, that he still does not understand it. The earthquake was the mountain speaking. The mountain spoke for the first time in centuries. The mountain spoke, and the people of Pompeii did not know it was the mountain. They thought it was an earthquake. They were not wrong. It was an earthquake, but it was also a warning. And the warning was a word in the language Rome had forgotten. He sets the dispatch down. He picks up the next one. The second dispatch is dated a month after the earthquake. It is longer than the first. It is a survey drawn up by the City Council of Pompeii. of what the city has lost. The survey is for the Imperial Archives. The Emperor Nero has sent inspectors. The inspectors have asked for a list. The city council has prepared the list. The list is on this papyrus. Pliny reads it slowly. The temple of Jupiter on the Forum has lost its roof and the upper third of its columns. The temple of Apollo, the older temple, the one the Oscans had built and the Romans had relabeled, has cracked along the eastern wall, but still stands. The temple of Isis, much smaller, has fallen entirely. The basilica has lost its lateral walls, but the central nave holds. The Misenum, the market hall by the Forum, has folded in on itself. The fish sellers are working out of carts in the streets. The Stabian baths have lost their domed ceiling. The bathers are using the smaller baths near the gate. The Forum baths are still functional. The amphitheatre is intact. The theatre, the smaller one, has cracks in the seats but is usable. The larger theatre is closed for repairs. The list goes on. Private homes, listed by neighbourhood, with the names of their owners and the extent of the damage. The House of the Faun, owned by a man named Cassius, lost the front portico. The House of Pansa lost a wing. The House of the Vettiae brothers, owned by two wealthy freedmen named Aulus and Quintus, had nearly half the rooms come down. The smaller houses on the back streets, the houses of the dye workers and the bakers and the freedmen with their narrow shops below their living quarters, came down by the dozen. The list mentions the fountains, the aqueduct, the Aqua Augusta, the great aqueduct that brought water from the hills, has cracked in 3 places. The city has been without water for 2 weeks. The smaller cisterns under the houses are the only source. The poor have started carrying buckets down to the harbour and back. The long climb up the city hill, just to wash. The list mentions the streets, the basalt paving stones, the great black volcanic stones the Romans laid down over the Oscan dirt tracks centuries before have shifted. Whole sections of street have heaved up. The cart ruts that generations of oxen had worn into the basalt are now wrong. The carts that used to glide along the worn grooves now scrape and jolt. The streets will need relaying. The list mentions the homes again. More specifically now, the painted frescoes on the walls of the wealthy houses have cracked. Some have fallen off the walls entirely. The painters who had painted them 10 years ago, 20 years ago, are dead. There is no record of who they were. Their names are lost. The list mentions the courtyards, the atria of the great houses, with their rectangular openings to the sky, and their rainwater catchments below, are full of fallen plaster and broken roof tiles. The pools are dry. The garden fountains are silent. The flowers in the peristyle gardens are crushed where columns fell on them. The peristyles will need recolumned. The atria will need re-roofed. The frescoes will need repainted. The list mentions the dead. Pliny does not write down the number because the number is still being counted at the time of the dispatch. The number will grow over the weeks that follow. The number will never be exact. Some bodies are still under the rubble at the time of writing. Some will not be found for months. The earthquake of Pompeii took several thousand. Some say 2,000. Some say 4. The truth is unknowable. Pliny remembers reading this dispatch too. He remembers being 38. He remembers thinking that the city would never come back. He remembers being wrong about that. He picks up the next dispatch. It is dated a year after the earthquake. The city has begun to come back. The dispatch is from the same junior officer who wrote the first one, except he is no longer junior. He has been promoted. He is now in charge of the imperial inspection. He has been walking Pompeii for months. He is writing a longer account, calmer, more systematic. He writes that the citizens have begun to rebuild. They have begun in their own homes first. They have not waited for the city council or the emperor's funds. They have hired the local stonemasons and have started with their own walls. They have relaid stones into the gaps. They have re-roofed their own rooms. They have stripped fallen plaster and started the long work of replastering. They have ordered paint and pigment from the suppliers in Naples and Chiome and Boscoreale. They have begun to repaint the frescoes that had cracked off. They are not painting the same frescoes. Some are painting new ones. A wealthy fuller named Vesonius Primus has commissioned a Pompeian red wall in his atrium that no one has ever painted before. He's showing off the recovery. He is paying the painters double their usual fee. The painters are not local. The painters have come from Naples for the work. They will stay in Pompeii for years. The dispatch describes the sound of the city in those first months. The sound was chisels. Hundreds of chisels. Stone on stone, dawn until dusk, on every street. The dispatch says a Pompeii citizen could not walk 3 blocks without passing a stonemason at work. The chisels rang. Different chisels rang at different pitches. The big chisels for the basalt streets rang low. The smaller chisels for the wall stones rang higher. The smallest chisels, used for the careful work of cutting new column blocks to replace cracked ones, rang almost like a bell. The dispatch says by the 3rd month, the citizens could tell the time of day from the sound of the chisels. The big chisels started at dawn. The wall chisels started at the 2nd hour. The column chisels worked later, when the sun was high, and the stonemasons could see what they were carving. The Aqua Augusta has been repaired. The repairs took 13 months. The water has come back to the public fountains. The first day the water returned, the citizens lined up at the fountains with empty jars and bowls, and then they did not draw water. They just stood there. The dispatch says this. The dispatch says the citizens stood at the fountains in silence and watched the water flow. An old woman wept. A small child put his hand in the water and held it there until his mother pulled him away. The water ran over the worn stone of the fountain lip and pooled in the basin below and overflowed onto the basalt at the street corner. For an hour, the citizens stood there. Nobody drew water. They watched. Pliny pauses. He thinks about that. He thinks about what it means to watch water flow after a year without it. He reads on. The dispatch covers the 2nd year. The forum temples are being re-roofed. The temple of Jupiter has new tiles, lifted up by ropes and pulleys. Each tile passed hand to hand by a chain of slaves and freedmen standing on scaffolding made from olive wood. The temple of Apollo has been replastered on the eastern wall. The plaster is fresh, almost white. It will yellow over the next decade. The smell of the wet lime travels 2 streets in either direction. The neighbors complain. The neighbors get used to it. By the end of the season, the smell is part of the city. The temple of Isis is being rebuilt from the ground. The old foundations were sound, but the walls had to be torn out and replaced. The basilica is back in use. The Misenum is back in use. The Stabian baths have a new dome, vaulted in brick, the bricks laid by a foreman from Naples, who had built a similar dome in his own city a decade before. He stays in Pompeii for the dome work and then stays longer. He marries a Pompeii widow whose husband died in the bakery the morning of the earthquake. He has 2 children. He never leaves. The bath tenders have begun to take customers again. The dye works are running. The bakeries are baking. The streets, slowly, are being relaid. The basalt stones they relaid are heavy. Each stone weighs more than a man. The stonemasons work in pairs. They pry the heaved sections apart, level the bed beneath with smaller broken stone, and lower each stone back into place. They work in the cool of the early morning. They work shirtless. Their hands are wrapped in linen that they re-wrap every hour because the basalt is rough and the linen wears through. The new fit is not the old fit. There are slight gaps. Over the years, the gaps will fill with grit and worn carts will smooth them. But the stonemasons of the year after the earthquake cannot fix this perfectly. They can only fix it enough. The 3rd year of the dispatch is about the houses. The atria that were broken open are closed again. The peristyle columns that had cracked have been replaced. The replacement columns are slightly thicker than the originals. They are quarried from a different limestone source, a quarry the city had not used before the earthquake, because the old quarry had also been damaged and could not deliver enough stone for 2 years. The new columns are a slightly paler shade than the old. In some houses, a peristyle now stands with 3 pale columns and 1 darker one, the survivor from before. The owners do not paint the survivor to match. They leave it. The mismatch is the proof that something happened. The mismatch is the only honest memorial in those houses. The frescoes that fell off the walls have been repainted colour by colour. The painters who arrive in Pompeii to do this work are men from Naples and Cumae and Boscoriale, brought in by the city council and by the wealthier families on private commission. They travel in groups of 3 or 4. They carry their own pigments in clay jars, stoppered with wax. The indigo is the heaviest. The Egyptian blue is the most valuable. The Pompeian red, the deep, dark red that will become the signature colour of the city, is made from cinnabar, mixed with red ochre. And the cinnabar comes from a mine in Hispania that ships once a year. The painters arrive in the spring and stay through the summer and into the fall. They work on scaffolds inside the houses. They eat their midday meals where they work, sitting on the scaffold planks, looking at the half-finished walls. The dispatch says that the painters develop a habit of singing while they work. They sing in Greek because most of them came up through Greek apprenticeships, and the songs are old, and the songs do not have anything to do with Pompeii. The owners of the houses can hear the singing from their atria below. They get used to it. By the 3rd year, when a painter finishes a wall and packs up his pigments and goes home to Naples, the owner sometimes pays for a small farewell meal: wine, bread, olives. The owner and the painter eat together. Sometimes they do not speak. Sometimes the new frescoes are exact copies of the old. Sometimes the owners have changed their minds. Sometimes the painters have changed their minds. A new style has begun to appear in Pompeii in the years after the earthquake. A style that art historians 1,000 years later will name the 4th style. The 4th style is busier than the styles before it. The 4th style has more architecture in the painting, more illusion, more painted columns and painted balustrades, and painted distant landscapes. The art historians will think the fourth style emerged because of artistic evolution. The truth is that the fourth style emerged because Pompeii had to repaint half its walls at once, and the painters who repainted them were Greek-trained men from Naples who had been carrying a new vocabulary in their hands for a generation, and the earthquake gave them the walls to use it on. Pliny reads the dispatches that cover years 4 through 7. They are shorter. The reports become annual. The reports become routine. Pompeii is rebuilding. The same names appear over and over. The fuller Vesonius, the magistrate Herculaneum, the wine merchants on the western side, the bakery family of Modestus, the freedman Trimalchio, whose feasts are already legendary by year 5. The city is coming back. The city is louder than before. The city is wealthier than before. The earthquake destroyed 2,000 bodies, 4,000 bodies. But the city has more bodies in it now than before the earthquake. The slaves brought in to do the heavy rebuilding have stayed and become freedmen. The freedmen have had children. The children are growing up in the streets the slaves laid down. The streets do not feel like new streets. They feel like the streets that have always been there. This is the work of 17 years. The remaining dispatches are short. They cover years 8, 10, 12, 15. They are sparse. The imperial inspectors stopped coming around year 7. The local magistrates stopped writing detailed reports after that. The city was back to normal. The city no longer needed a special inspection. Pliny reads the last dispatch. It is dated 9 months ago. The year is now the 11th year of the Emperor Vespasian. The dispatch is from a friend of Pliny's who passed through Pompeii on his way south. The friend describes a city he found whole and prosperous and entirely uninterested in remembering what had happened to it. The friend writes that he asked an old fish seller at the harbour about the earthquake. The fish seller said his grandfather had told him about it. The fish seller had not been born yet at the time. To the fish seller, the earthquake was a story. The earthquake had happened to other people. The people who had survived the earthquake were old now, or dead. The young people of Pompeii had grown up walking the relaid basalt streets, and assuming the basalt streets had always been there. The young people had grown up in re-roofed houses, and assuming the roofs had always been the roofs. The young people had grown up looking at the painted frescoes on the new Pompeian red walls, and assuming the frescoes were old. The young people did not know that the city they lived in was a rebuilt thing. They thought the city was the city. A child born in a year of the earthquake is now 17 years old. That child is a young man. The young man has never known a Pompeii that was broken. To him, Pompeii is whole, and Pompeii has always been whole. There are hundreds of such young men in Pompeii right now. One of them, this morning, is walking down the basalt street from the upper city to the harbour. He is not in a hurry. He is going to meet a girl. The girl works in her father's wine shop near the harbour gate. The young man has known the girl since they were children. They went to the same school, the one near the Temple of Apollo, where the teacher was an old freedman who beat them with a switch when they got their letters wrong. They have been promised to each other since last summer. They will marry in the autumn. He walks down the basalt street and does not notice the basalt street. He has walked it 10,000 times in his life. The slight gaps between the relaid stones have filled with grit and worn smooth from the carts. The young man knows where to step. His feet know. He's not thinking about the stones. He's thinking about what he will say to the girl when he sees her. He's thinking that he is going to ask her if she wants to walk out to the vineyards above the city in the afternoon. The grapes are coming in. The vineyards smell good in this season. They could walk in the rows. They could find shade under the older vines. They could sit. He thinks about this. He doesn't think about the basalt under his feet or the wall on his right hand, which was rebuilt by a stonemason and his son in the year after he was born, or the fresco of a goddess he passes on the corner of the street that was repainted by a man from Naples in the year he learned to walk. He is whole. The city around him is whole. He does not know that anything was ever broken. He passes an old man sitting on a low wall at the corner. The old man is from the city council. The old man was in his 30s when the earthquake hit. The old man helped draw up the inspector's list. The old man remembers all of it. The old man watches the young man walk by, and the old man does not say anything. He does not say to him, "That wall behind you is not the wall your grandfather knew." He does not say. The fresco of the goddess was painted by a man named Herman, who came from Naples and stayed for 3 summers, and then went home to bury his own father. He does not say, "I was 33 years old when this city was broken, and I am 60 years old now, and I have spent the second half of my life inside a city I built back from rubble." He does not say any of this. He lets the young man pass. The young man does not look back at the old man. The young man does not know the old man is there. The friend's dispatch does not name the young man, of course. But the friend has seen such young men on the streets of Pompeii. The friend writes that they walk the basalt streets the way fish swim in water. The friend writes that the young do not know what a city is, because they have only ever known one city, and one city is not a city to them, it is the world. The friend says, in his dispatch, that this is how it is in cities that have suffered and recovered. The young always inherit the recovered city. The young do not inherit the suffering. The young inherit the forgetting. The friend adds something Pliny will read 3 times before he understands it. The friend writes, "A city that has been rebuilt is more dangerous than a city that has not been broken, because a rebuilt city looks whole, and looking whole, it forgets that it is breakable, and a breakable city that has forgotten it is breakable will not run when it should run." The friend adds, almost as an afterthought, that there have been small tremors in Pompeii lately. Nothing serious. The wells have tasted strange in some neighborhoods. A few wine vats have cracked in the cellars of the wealthy. The street dogs have been restless. The fish seller mentioned to him that the seagulls had not come into the harbor for 3 weeks. The friend did not think it important. He mentioned it for color. He went on to other topics: the weather of the bay, the price of olives. Pliny sets the dispatch down. His chest tightens, but he does not yet know why. He stares at the morning sunlight on the table. The light has moved. The morning has worn on. The slaves will come soon to take away the untouched bread and bring something for the midday meal. The morning's reading is finished. He should rise. He should walk in the garden. He should write his nephew a letter. He should look in on the kitchen. He does not rise. He rolls the dispatches. He places them back in the wooden box. He closes the lid. He does not seal it again. He does not know why he does not seal it. He picks up his stylus. He turns it slowly in his fingers. He thinks about the city across the bay. He thinks about the citizens walking the basalt streets at this hour. The streets the stonemasons had to lay back down in the years after the earthquake. He thinks about the bakers opening their ovens for the morning's loaves. He thinks about the dye workers stirring the vats of indigo and saffron, the colours the painters had used to repaint the frescoes a decade ago. He thinks about the children of Pompeii, the 17-year-olds who do not know what the city was before they were born, running along the relayed stones, calling to each other, late for school, late for work, late for everything. He thinks about the small tremors his friend had mentioned, the wells tasting strange, the seagulls absent for 3 weeks. He sets the stylus down. He looks toward the window. He walks to it. He looks across the bay. The mountain is there. The mountain stands across the water. The mountain is calm. The mountain has not moved since the earthquake of 17 years ago. The mountain has held its shape, its slopes, its scattered cypress, its small farms terraced up to the lower ridges, its vineyards belonging to the families he buys his wine from, its olive groves, its single small temple to a god whose name has been forgotten since the Oscans walked away from it. The mountain looks the same as it has looked every morning of his life. He has lived 55 years, and the mountain has not changed. The morning sun catches the upper slopes. The light is warm. There is no wind. The bay is silver. The fishing boats are unloading their catches. The fishermen are calling to each other across the water. Words Pliny cannot quite hear at this distance. The seagulls are absent today, but he has not noticed. He has been reading. He thinks. Tonight, he will go back to Naturalis Historia. He has more to write. He has the section on the eruption of Etna to revise. He has been reading Theoph Rastus on the topic. He will work tonight, when the candle is lit again, and the wax pools again on the bronze stand, and the room smells of the warm wax again. He thinks. He will not open the box of dispatches again. He has read them. He has remembered. That is enough. He thinks about the city across the bay. He thinks the city is whole. He turns from the window. He goes to find his sister. The mountain does not move. The mountain is the same as it has been every morning of his life. But the morning is not yet over. The light is changing. It is late afternoon at the villa at Misenum. The sun has crossed the sky. The sun is on the western side of the bay now, behind the villa, throwing the shadow of the villa long across the bay water. The bay is the colour of beaten bronze. The fishing boats that went out at dawn are coming back in with the wind. The smaller boats are already at the harbour stones. The larger boats are gliding in slowly, their sails half drawn, their oarsmen working the last half mile. Pliny is at his table. He is reading. He has been reading for hours. He has finished the dispatches from the year of the earthquake. He has closed the wooden box and set it on the low shelf in the corner. He has gone back to the work he was doing before, which is Naturalis Historia, the section on the eruption of Etna, the notes he has been making from Theoph Rastus. The candle is not lit yet. The light from the window is enough. The light is warm. The light falls across the wax tablet on his table. The light falls across the open scroll. The light falls across his hand as he writes. He hears a sound from the next room. It is his sister. His sister calls his name. She calls his name twice. The second time, her voice is different. Pliny sets the stylus down. He does not finish the sentence. He looks toward the door. His sister appears in the doorway. Her hand is on the door frame. She is looking at him. Her face is composed. Her face is always composed. She has lived in this villa with him for many years. She has watched the sea from these rooms for many years. She's seen storms. She's seen the small earthquakes that come and go in this part of the bay. She has seen everything. She's not seen what she has just seen. She says only, "Come and look." She turns. She walks back into the room she came from. Pliny stands. He follows her. He carries the stylus with him without meaning to. He notices this only later. He notices many small things later that he did not notice now. The room she has led him to faces the bay. The room has wide shutters. The shutters are open. The afternoon light is coming through them in long, warm bars. His sister is standing in front of one of the shutters. She is not looking at him. She is looking out the shutter. She is looking across the bay. She is looking at the mountain. Pliny crosses the room. He stops beside her. He looks out the shutter. The mountain is across the bay. The mountain has been across the bay every morning of his life. The mountain has not moved. The mountain has not changed. The mountain has held its shape, its slopes, its vineyards, its olive groves, its small farms terraced up to the lower ridges. The mountain has been the same yesterday, and the day before, and the year before, and the 17 years before that. The mountain is not the same now. There's something rising out of the mountain. Pliny looks at it for a long moment without speaking. His sister is silent beside him. The villa is silent behind them. The fishing boats coming into the harbour are silent. The whole bay is silent. The whole afternoon is silent. Then Pliny says, quietly, almost to himself, "It is a cloud." His sister does not answer. She is still looking. Pliny looks again. He looks at the shape of it. He looks at the colour of it. He looks at how it is moving. He says more quietly, "It is not a cloud. The shape rises out of the mountain. The shape comes out of the top of the mountain. It comes out of one place. It comes out fast. It is not the slow climbing of a cloud forming over warm land in the afternoon. It is not the slow gathering of weather. It comes out of the mountain the way water comes out of a fountain. It comes out the way smoke comes out of a chimney in winter. But it is not smoke. It is not water. It is something else. The shape goes straight up. The shape goes up for a long way before it begins to spread. The trunk of the shape is dark grey. The trunk of the shape is darker grey than any cloud Pliny has ever seen. The trunk is straight. The trunk does not lean. The trunk is climbing up out of the mountain the way a tall tree climbs out of dark earth. At the top of the trunk, the shape begins to open. It begins to spread out sideways. It begins to branch. Pliny will write down later, in a letter to his nephew, that the shape looked like a pine tree. He will write it down because no other shape will fit. The mountain has grown a tree. The tree is taller than any tree that has ever stood on the bay. The trunk of the tree is wide. The trunk of the tree is dark. The branches of the tree spread out at the top in heavy lobes that keep growing as he watches. The branches are black inside. The branches are grey at the edges. The branches roll. They do not blow. There is no wind today. The wind has been gentle all afternoon. The bay has been calm. The fishing boats have come in without trouble. but the branches at the top of the tree are rolling, turning over inside themselves, the way storm clouds roll when the storm is overhead. Except this is not overhead. This is across the bay. This is on the mountain. Pliny is looking at the shape. He is not breathing easily. He is not afraid. He is not afraid yet. He is the kind of man who reads about the world. He has read about Etna. He has read about the volcanoes of Sicily. He has read about Stromboli and Vulcano. He has read Theophrastus. He has read Empedocles. He has read every Greek who ever wrote down a word about fire coming out of the earth. He has thought about it. He has imagined it. He has described it in Naturalis Historia. He has never seen it. The thing across the bay is not in any book he has read. The thing across the bay is not what the Greeks described. The thing across the bay is not the description of Empedocles. The thing across the bay is the thing itself. The thing itself does not look the way the descriptions had made him imagine. The thing itself is bigger. The thing itself is faster. The thing itself is more strange. His sister speaks. She asks him quietly what it is. Pliny does not answer immediately. He's still looking. He says, finally, the mountain is burning. His sister says, the mountain is not on fire. There are no flames. Pliny says, the burning is inside the mountain. The mountain is letting it out. His sister says, how long has it been doing this? Pliny says, I do not know. He says it twice. The second time, he says it more slowly. He says, I do not know. I did not see it begin. It was already there when you called me. His sister looks at him. She does not say what she is thinking. She is thinking that the mountain has been doing this for some amount of time before they noticed. She is thinking that the mountain has been changing while they were inside reading. She is right. The tree in the sky keeps growing. The tree spreads. The tree spreads further than Pliny would have imagined any cloud could spread. The branches keep climbing. The branches keep widening. The branches start to move sideways across the sky above the bay. They do not move with the wind, because there is still no wind. They move because the mountain keeps pushing more and more of the dark thing up into them, and the dark thing has nowhere to go but outward. The branches reach across the bay. The branches reach toward Misenum. Pliny watches them come. He stands at the open shutter and watches the branches of the tree reach across the bay toward the villa where he is standing. He watches the leading edge of the cloud move across the water in his direction. He watches the sun catch the edge of the cloud and lose it. He watches the sun keep going. He watches the cloud keep going. He watches the cloud begin to cross under the sun. The first thing that happens is the light changes color. The light has been gold for the last hour. The light has been the warm gold of late afternoon, the gold that makes the bay look like beaten bronze, the gold that makes the white walls of the villa across the harbour warm to the touch. The gold begins to turn. The gold turns through yellow. The gold turns through orange. The gold turns toward red. The red is not the red of a sunset. The red of a sunset comes from below, from the horizon, when the sun is going down. This red comes from the side. This red is the sun shining through the edge of the cloud at an angle, the way light shines through smoked glass. The light is still on the bay. The light is still on the villa, but the light is wrong. The light is the wrong color for the hour. His sister speaks. She says quietly, the light. Pliny nods. He does not look away from the shutter The cloud keeps moving. The branches keep growing. The cloud climbs higher above the mountain and reaches further across the bay. The cloud reaches the place in the sky where the afternoon sun is hanging. The cloud begins to cross the sun. The light on the bay dims. The light on the villa dims. The light on his sister's face dims. The dimming is not a sunset. The dimming is not a storm. The dimming is the sun itself, slowly beginning to disappear behind something that is not made of sky. The dimming has the quality of an eclipse, but it is not the speed of an eclipse. It is slower than an eclipse. It is heavier than an eclipse. The light does not go bluish the way it goes during an eclipse. The light goes grey. The light goes brown. The light goes the colour of weak tea. Pliny has never seen this light before. The fishermen down at the harbour have stopped working. He can hear them. He can hear the unloading of the catches stop. He can hear the calling across the water stop. He can hear something quieter underneath all of it now, which is the sound of men looking up at the sky and not speaking. The dogs in the village below the villa begin to bark. They bark together. They do not stop barking. The seagulls are not there. He notices this in the way you notice the absence of a sound. The seagulls have been gone for some days. He had not noticed until now. The water of the bay changes colour. The water has been bronze. The water turns the colour of cold iron. The water turns the colour of slate. The water keeps changing. The water becomes the same colour as the cloud above it, which is the colour of nothing in particular, the colour of a thing without a name. And then the sun turned off. He will not write that line in his letter. The line is not in any Roman vocabulary he was taught, but in the room at the villa at Misenum, standing beside his sister at the open shutter, watching the shadow take the bay, watching the shadow take the villa, watching the shadow take his sister's face and his own hands, and the wax tablet on the table behind him. This is the only line that fits. The sun turned off in the wrong hour. The mountain had turned it off. Pliny calls for a Liburnian. A Liburnian is a small ship. A Liburnian is a fast ship. A Liburnian carries a single bank of oars. A Liburnian can be turned in tight water. A Liburnian is the ship a Roman officer uses when he wants to go somewhere quickly and quietly, without bringing the full weight of the navy with him. Pliny is the commander of the Roman fleet at Misenum. He has warships at his command. He has birames and triremes, and the big quadriremes for transporting men. He has Liburnians too, the small fast ones, kept ready in the harbour for any officer who needs to move. He calls for a Liburnian first. He calls for it because he wants to see the mountain up close. He is a man of letters. He is a man of curiosity. He is the author of Naturalis Historia. He has spent his whole life reading about volcanoes, and now there is one in front of him, and he wants to see it. The historian in him wants to see it. The natural philosophers in him wants to see it. The 55-year-old man who has read everything and seen too little of what he has read about wants to see it. He calls for the Liburnian, and he calls for the writing desk to be carried down to the harbour. He intends to take notes from the deck. He intends to observe the phenomenon. He intends to send back to Misenum a careful, dispassionate, scholarly account of what is happening on the mountain. This is his first plan. His first plan does not survive. While he is preparing the Liburnian, a messenger arrives at the villa. The messenger is breathless. The messenger has run up from the harbour. the messenger carries a letter. The letter is written in a woman's hand. The letter is from Rectina, the wife of his friend Tatius. Rectina lives in a villa on the slope of the mountain itself. Rectina has watched the cloud rise out of the mountain from a place that was directly beneath it. Rectina has watched the cloud begin to descend. Rectina has written, "Come." Rectina has written, "There is no way out by land. The roads are full of ash. The horses will not move on the ash. The carts cannot pass. The slaves are afraid. The villa is shaking. We're trapped on the mountain. The sea is the only road left. You command the fleet. You can come. We are waiting for you. We cannot wait long." Pliny reads the letter. He could send the Liburnian. The Liburnian is fast. The Liburnian could reach Rectina's villa in an hour. The Liburnian could carry her and her household away from the mountain and back across the bay to Misenum. The Liburnian is enough. The Liburnian is what is called for. He could send the Liburnian and stay at his desk and finish the section on Etna, and write a letter to his nephew, describing what the mountain has done today. He does not send the Liburnian. He calls for the war fleet. He calls for the war fleet to be made ready. He calls for the Birames. He calls for the Quadriremes. He calls for every ship that can be launched within the hour. He gives the order. He says it once. The officers under him do not ask him to repeat it. They have served him for years. They know his voice when he is dictating Naturalis Historia, and they know his voice when he is giving an order. He is giving an order. He says, "The wife of Tatius is on the mountain. Many others are on the mountain. There are villages along the shore beneath the mountain. There are people in those villages. They will need ships. We are taking ships." He goes to his sister. He tells her what he's going to do. He tells her where he is going. He tells her that he is taking the fleet across the bay to the slope of the mountain to bring back as many people as the ships can hold. His sister does not argue with him. His sister knows him. His sister asks where his nephew is. His sister wants to know that the boy is safe. His sister wants to know that the 18-year-old who lives with them, the boy who is her son and his student, will be looked after. Pliny says, "Tell my nephew to stay with you. Tell him to take care of his mother. I will send word from across the bay when I can." His sister nods. His sister does not weep. She will not weep until later, in the dark, when she does not know if she will see her brother again. Pliny walks down to the harbour. He walks down through the villa to the steps that lead to the path that leads to the harbour stones. The dimmed afternoon light falls on the path. The dimmed afternoon light falls on the stones. The dimmed afternoon light falls on the shoulders of the slaves who are already running ahead of him with messages for the fleet. The light is the colour of the inside of a tin cup. The light is the colour of nothing in particular. The light is the colour of a sun that has been turned off. He reaches the harbour. The ships are waking. The ships are filling with men. The crews are running aboard. The oars are being set. The sails are being readied for the small wind that has started to come. The strange dry wind that has started to blow toward the mountain instead of away from it, as if the mountain itself is breathing in. Pliny climbs aboard the lead ship. He could have sailed away. He sails toward. While Pliny prepares his ships across the bay, a baker is at his oven. The baker has worked since before dawn. The baker has worked the way bakers have always worked, which is to wake in the dark, to make the dough in the dark, to let the dough rise while the sun comes up, to shape the loaves while the city wakes, to slide the loaves into the oven while the morning is still cool. The baker has done this every day for many years. The baker is old enough to remember the earthquake from 17 years ago. The baker rebuilt his oven after the earthquake. The baker rebuilt his oven the same way it was before, the same brick, the same arch, the same iron rack, in the same room at the back of the shop, with the same window, facing the same alley, that the same morning light came through. The baker shaped his loaves this morning. The baker slid them into the oven. The baker walked out to the front of the shop to wait for the first customers. Then the afternoon turned strange. The light went wrong. The dogs began to bark. The dogs across the city began to bark. The neighbors began to step out into the street. The neighbors stood looking at the sky. The neighbors stood looking at the mountain. The baker did not go back to the oven. The bread stayed in the oven. He did not. He ran. He ran with the rest of them. He ran toward the gates of the city. He ran toward the road that leads north toward Naples, toward the road that lead the way from the mountain. He ran with his apron still on. He ran with the flour still on his hands. He ran with the heat of the oven still on his arms. He did not go back for the bread. He did not turn off the fire. He did not close the door of the shop. He did not lock anything. He left the loaves in the oven, and the oven still warm, and the door of the shop open, and the morning's coins still in the small clay jar on the counter. The bread stayed in the oven. The oven kept its heat for a few hours. The loaves baked. The loaves browned. The loaves browned darker than they should have. The loaves browned to black. The loaves stayed in the oven through the afternoon. The loaves stayed in the oven through the evening. The loaves stayed in the oven that night. The loaves were still in the oven when the ash began to fall on the city, when the ash filled the oven, when the ash filled the shop, when the ash filled the street outside the shop, when the ash filled the alleys and the streets and the forum and the temples and the houses and the gardens and the granaries and the wine shops and the brothels and the gymnasium and the theatre and the basilica and the small temples to the Egyptian gods. The loaves were still in the oven when the city stopped moving. The loaves were still in the oven when the city was no longer a city. The bakery survived. The oven survived. The loaves survived. The loaves stayed where they had been put. They were not burned. They were not eaten. They were not removed. They sat in the dark in the oven of a baker who had walked away from them, in a city that had walked away from itself, under a mountain that had walked away from the patience of 17 years. The loaves are still there. They are in the Naples Archaeological Museum. They are 81 round loaves of bread, scored in the standard Roman style. 8 slices per loaf. The baker's mark still pressed into the top of each one. The mark is the name of the baker. The mark is the address of his shop. The mark is the year. The mark is the warmth of the morning when the loaves went into the oven. The bread stayed in the oven. The baker did not. Pliny knows nothing of this baker. Pliny will never know. The bread will be found 2,000 years later. The baker will be found later still. The baker has not yet been found. But across the bay, at this hour, while Pliny is climbing aboard the lead ship of his fleet, the baker has just run out of his shop, and the oven door is still open, and the bread is still rising in the dimmed afternoon light. The fleet leaves Misenum, The ships pull out of the harbour, one after another. The lead ship goes first. Pliny is on the lead ship. He is on the deck. He has not gone below. He intends not to go below for the entire crossing. He wants to see what he can see. The oars dip. The oars rise. The water beside the oars is the colour of the inside of an unfired clay pot. The water is no longer reflective. The water is no longer bright. The water has gone matte. The water has gone heavy. The water has the look of water that has been left standing for a long time in a basin and forgotten. The wind has shifted. The wind is blowing toward the mountain. The wind is dry. The wind is hot. The wind smells of something that does not belong to the sea. The wind smells of struck flint. The wind smells of opened earth. The wind smells of the inside of an oven. The wind smells of all of these things at once, layered, the way a temple smells of incense, and old stone and dust. The light is grey. The light is the same colour across the entire bay now. The shadow of the cloud reaches the western shore. The shadow of the cloud reaches Misenum. The shadow of the cloud reaches the open water. The shadow of the cloud reaches the lead ship. The first ash falls on the deck. The first ash is light. The first ash is the size of grit. The first ash falls on the deck, the way the first flakes of a snowfall fall, gently, almost gently. The first ash falls on the shoulders of the rowers. The first ash falls on the wax tablet Pliny has set out on the small table that has been carried up for him. The first ash falls into his cup of watered wine. He does not drink it. He dictates. He dictates to a slave who has come aboard with him for this purpose. The slave is young. The slave is afraid. The slave's hand is steady because the slave has been trained to be steady. The slave writes what Pliny says. Pliny says, "The cloud is shaped like a pine tree." Pliny says, "The trunk is dark, the branches spread." Pliny says, "Ash is falling on the deck. The ash is warm." Pliny says, "We are crossing toward Stabiae. We are going to take aboard the household of Rectina and any others who are at the shore." Pliny says, "Tell my nephew to take care of his mother." The slave writes, "The ash thickens. The ash stops being snow. The ash starts being weather. The ash falls heavier. The ash falls darker. The ash starts to come down in pieces. Some of the pieces are warm. Some of the pieces are hot. Some of the pieces are stones. The stones are small. The stones are the size of peas. The stones strike the deck. The stones strike the sail. The stones strike the helmsman's helmet, and the helmsman does not flinch. The rowers cover their heads with cloths. The lead pilot comes to Pliny. The lead pilot is a Roman of long service. The lead pilot has crossed the bay 1,000 times. The lead pilot has never crossed the bay in this light. The lead pilot says, quietly, that the ship should turn. The lead pilot says, quietly, that the wind is wrong. The lead pilot says, quietly, that the harbour at Stabiae may be impassable. The lead pilot says quietly that he recommends turning back to Misenum while turning back is still possible. Pliny does not turn back. Pliny says, "Fortune favours the brave." He says it once. He says it in the calm voice of a man who has read about courage in books, and now is testing whether the books were right. The pilot does not argue. The pilot returns to his post. The fleet keeps crossing. The ash keeps falling. The mountain keeps growing in the windscreen of the lead ship until it fills the windscreen, until it fills the sky above the windscreen, until there is no sky behind it anymore. Only mountain, only cloud, only the slow, steady darkening of the afternoon into something that is not afternoon and is not yet night, and has no name. Pliny stands on the deck. The slave writes. The bay disappears behind them. The ships sail toward the dark. The lead ship reaches the shore at Stabiae. The shore at Stabiae is the south side of the bay. The shore at Stabiae is below the mountain, but not directly beneath it. The shore at Stabiae has the villa of Pomponianus on it. Pomponianus is a friend of Pliny. Pomponianus has loaded his belongings onto a boat in the harbour at Stabiae. Pomponianus is ready to leave. Pomponianus is waiting for the wind to turn. The wind has not turned. Pliny goes ashore. He embraces Pomponianus. He tells Pomponianus that the fleet has arrived. He tells Pomponianus that the fleet will leave with the morning tide if the wind allows. He tells Pomponianus to relax. He tells Pomponianus that all is well. Pomponianus is not relaxed. Pomponianus's slaves are not relaxed. Pomponianus's household is not relaxed. Pliny tells them to draw a bath. Pliny tells them to set the table. Pliny tells them to bring wine. Pliny bathes. The slaves heat the water. The slaves pour the water. Pliny lies in the heated water, as if it is any evening. The ash falls outside the bathhouse. The ash falls on the roof of the bathhouse. The ash falls on the courtyard. The ash falls on the kitchen garden. The ash falls on the small fountain in the kitchen garden, where Pomponianus's children have played in the summer of every year of their lives. Pliny eats dinner. Pliny eats slowly. Pliny eats every course. Pliny drinks the wine. Pliny tells stories. Pliny tells stories the way he tells stories to his nephew at home. Slowly, completely, without hurrying, as if there is all the time in the world. He tells Pomponianus that the lights they see on the mountain are the fires of the country people. The fires the country people have built to drive away the dark. The fires that have been left untended when the country people fled. He tells Pomponianus that this is what fires do when people leave them. He tells Pomponianus that the lights are nothing. He tells Pomponianus that the night will pass. The household watches him. The household believes him because he says it calmly. The household believes him because he eats. The household believes him because he is the commander of the Roman fleet at Misenum and the author of Naturalis Historia, and a man who has read every Greek who ever wrote down a word about fire coming out of the earth. The mountain is now lit from inside. The lights are not the fires of country people. The lights are something else. The lights move. The lights flow. The lights rise. The lights are the colour of the sun when the sun has been turned off, and then turned back on, but turned back on as something it is not supposed to be. Pliny finishes his wine. Pliny goes to bed. Pliny lies down in the guest room Pomponianus has prepared for him. Pliny closes his eyes. Across the bay, his sister stands at the open shutter at Misenum and watches the lights of the mountain. His nephew is beside her. They do not speak. Pliny sleeps. The night begins. The mountain is now lit from inside. The morning will not come. The boy is at the window. The boy is 18 years old. The boy is the nephew of Pliny the Elder. The boy is the son of Pliny, the elder sister. The boy had lived in the villa at Misenum since he was a small child. The boy has been raised in the same rooms where Pliny the Elder reads and writes Naturalis Historia. The boy is the student of Pliny the Elder. The boy will be Pliny the Younger one day. Tonight, he is still only the boy. His mother is in the room behind him. His mother is sitting at the long table where the family eats. There is a small lamp on the table. The lamp is lit. The light of the lamp does not reach far. The light of the lamp falls on the edge of a scroll she is reading. The scroll is open in front of her. She is not really reading. She is holding the scroll because she has not known what else to do with her hands since her brother left in the early afternoon to take the fleet across the bay. His mother is the sister of the man who has crossed the bay. She knows the bay. She has watched fishing boats come back from rough water all her life. She has lived in the villa at Misenum longer than the boy has been alive. She has seen storms come and go. She has seen the small earthquakes that come and go in this part of the world. She has never seen what she is looking at tonight. She is not looking at the scroll. She is looking at the open shutter beyond her son's shoulder. The shutter has been open since the afternoon. The shutter is open because the boy will not close it. The boy is at the open shutter. The boy is looking out across the bay. The bay is dark. The bay should not be dark yet. It is dusk. The sun should still be over the western hills behind the villa. The sun should still be putting some last gold on the water. The bay should still be silver, the way the bay has been silver every dusk of the boy's life. The bay is the colour of slate. The bay is the colour of slate that has been left out in the rain. Above the bay, the cloud is still there. The cloud is much wider now than it was in the afternoon. The cloud reaches the western shore. The cloud reaches over Misenum. The cloud is now also above the boy's head. The boy looked up at it earlier and could not see the top of it. The cloud is the sky. The cloud is what the sky is here, tonight. The ash has started to fall on Misenum. The ash falls slowly. The ash falls the way the first flakes of a snowfall fall, except the ash is not white. The ash is grey. The ash falls on the open shutter. The ash falls on the stone sill. The ash falls on the boy's shoulders. The ash falls in his hair. He does not brush it away. The boy is standing very still. The boy is watching the bay. He is looking for ships. The boy knows that his uncle took the fleet across the bay this afternoon. The boy knows that his uncle was going to the slope of the mountain on the far side, where the wife of Tatius had written from. The boy knows that his uncle said he would send word from across the bay when he could. The boy has been waiting for word all afternoon. No word has come. No ship has come. No small boat. No messenger across the cliff path. No signal from the harbour. The harbour below the villa is quiet. The fishermen who normally moor their small boats at the harbour, stones at dusk, have not come in tonight. The boy has watched the harbour for 2 hours. The boy has not seen a single sail. The bay is empty. The boy's mother sets the scroll down. The boy's mother stands. She crosses the room. She comes to stand beside her son at the shutter. She does not say anything. She is taller than the boy thought she was. She is the woman who raised him. She is the sister of the man across the bay. She is the wife of the man who is buried. She is the mother of the boy. She has been all of these things in this room many evenings. Tonight she is also a woman watching a bay for a brother. She puts a hand on the boy's shoulder. She brushes the ash from his hair. Her hand stays. Her hand is steady. Her hand is the hand of his childhood. Her hand on his shoulder is the only warm thing in the room. The boy says quietly that he cannot see any of the ships. She does not answer. She looks across the bay. She looks at the cloud that is the sky tonight. She looks at the mountain that is somewhere across the bay under the cloud and cannot be seen. She does not say what she is thinking. She is thinking that her brother is on the other side of the cloud. She is thinking that the other side of the cloud may not be a place from which letters arrive. She is thinking that this is not a thought she will say out loud. Not yet. Not while her son is beside her. Not while the lamp on the table is still lit. Not while the night is still only the dusk and there is still some hour left before the dark. She brushes another flake of ash from the boy's hair. She does not move. The villa shakes for the first time. The shake is small. The shake is short. The shake lasts the time of one breath. The lamp on the table behind them jumps in its bronze stand. The scroll she set down rolls a finger's width along the wood. The shutter she has her hand against trembles for a moment under her hand. Then the shake stops. Her son turns his head and looks at her. She does not look at him. She is still looking out the shutter. She says finally, very quietly, "I think we should bring the lamp closer." The elder is finishing his wine. The elder is at the long table in the dining room of Pomponianus's villa at Stabiae. The elder is alone at the table. Pomponianus has gone to lie down. Pomponianus's wife has taken the children to the small inner courtyard. The household slaves have left the dining room. The household slaves are gathered in the kitchen. The household slaves are watching the doorway in case the elder calls. The elder has not called. The elder has eaten every course. The elder has drunk 3 cups of wine. The elder is sitting at the table, the way the elder sits at his own table, at Misenum on any quiet evening. The elder has his elbows on the table. The elder has a small piece of bread in his hand. The elder is turning the bread slowly in his fingers. The dining room shakes. The shake is not small. The shake is not short. The shake goes on. The dishes on the table rattle. The cups slide. The wine in the elder's cup ripples and slops over the rim onto the wood. The lamps on the walls swing on their chains. The chains creak. The plaster of the ceiling above the elder makes a small sound that the elder has not heard a ceiling make before. The sound is like a piece of wet cloth tearing. The elder sets the bread down. The shake stops. The elder picks up the bread again. The elder finishes the bread. The elder drinks the last of the wine in his cup. The elder dabs his lip with the corner of the cloth at his place. The elder stands. Pomponianus comes back into the dining room. Pomponianus is dressed for the road. Pomponianus has a small leather bag in his hand. Pomponianus has a cloth pressed to his nose against the smell that has been gathering in the villa since dark. The smell is the smell that came over on the wind to Misenum hours ago. The smell that the younger has on his shoulders tonight. The smell of struck flint and opened earth and the inside of an oven. The smell is thicker at Stabiae. The smell here is the smell of the mountain itself. Pomponianus tells the elder that they have to leave. Pomponianus tells the elder that the household is ready. Pomponianus tells the elder that the ships in the harbour cannot launch because the wind is wrong, but that the household will walk away on the road that leads inland. Pomponianus tells the elder that the children are afraid. Pomponianus tells the elder that he himself is afraid. The elder listens. The elder nods. The elder does not argue. The elder says only that he would like a cloth, and he would like to lie down on the beach for a few minutes, and he would like a slave to come with him and write down what he says. The elder says he has not lain down since the morning. The elder says he is 55 years old, and the day has been long. Pomponianus says that the beach is not safe. The elder says that the beach is the best place to see the mountain. The elder says that he will only be a few minutes. The elder says that Pomponianus should take the household and start walking, and that he, the elder, will follow when he has rested. The elder walks out of the dining room. The elder walks through the courtyard. The ash falls on the elder in the courtyard. The ash falls on his shoulders. The ash falls on the bald part of the top of his head. The ash falls into the small fountain in the courtyard, where Pomponianus's children have played in the summers. And the water of the fountain is no longer water. The water of the fountain is paste. The elder walks down the courtyard steps. The elder walks down the path that leads to the beach. The elder is followed by a slave. The slave carries a folded cloth. The slave carries a wax tablet. The slave carries a stylus. The slave is the one the elder dictated to on the ship this afternoon. The slave is afraid. The slave's hand is steady because the slave has been trained to be steady. The elder reaches the beach. The beach is the beach at Stabiae. The beach is short. The beach is below the villa. The beach faces the bay. The beach faces the mountain. The mountain is across the water. The mountain is not visible. The cloud is above the mountain. The cloud is where the mountain used to be. The cloud is glowing. The cloud is glowing from inside. The cloud is glowing in a way that is not the way fire glows. The cloud is glowing the way the inside of a forge glows when the bellows have just been worked. The elder asks the slave to lay the cloth down. The slave lays the cloth down. The elder lies down on the cloth. The elder folds his hands across his chest. The elder breathes. The elder breathes slowly. The elder breathes the way a man breathes who is trying to control a tightness in the chest. The elder breathes the way a man breathes who has noticed that the air is not the air it was this afternoon. The elder breathes the way a man breathes who is testing a thought he has not yet said out loud. The elder asks the slave to write. The slave kneels. The slave opens the wax tablet. The slave holds the stylus. The elder says, "The mountain is glowing from inside." The cloud above the mountain has the color of the inside of a forge. The ash is falling on the beach as well as the villa. The wind has not turned. The night is warm. The slave writes. The elder breathes. The elder closes his eyes. The elder lies still on the folded cloth on the beach at Stabiae and waits to feel better. He does not feel better. It is the middle of the night. The boy and his mother have left the villa. The boy and his mother have walked down through the gardens to the lower terrace. The lower terrace looks out across the bay. The boy and his mother have brought the lamp from the table. The boy has the lamp. The boy is holding the lamp in his right hand. The boy is holding his mother's hand in his left hand. The boy is 18, and he is holding his mother's hand the way he held her hand when he was 7. His mother is not embarrassed. The terrace is full of people. The terrace is full of slaves from the villa. The terrace is full of neighbours from the villas on either side of the path. The terrace is full of fishermen from the harbour below, who have walked up the cliff path with their families. The fishermen do not know what to do. The fishermen are on land because the sea has done something the fishermen have never seen the sea do. The sea has gone away. The sea has gone away from the shore. The sea has pulled back. The sea has receded the way the sea pulls back from a beach at low tide. Except this is not the time for low tide, and the sea has pulled back farther than any low tide in any of the fishermen's lives. The sea has pulled back so far that the bottom of the harbour is now showing. The bottom of the harbour that the boy has only ever seen as deep, dark green water from the cliff above. The bottom is grey mud. The bottom has stones in it. The bottom has the hulls of 2 old wrecked boats in it. The bottom has the dropped anchors and dropped cups and dropped iron tools that the fishermen have lost over the side of their boats across 200 years of fishing this harbour. The bottom has fish on it. The fish are flapping. The fish are gasping in the air the sea has left them in. The fish are the small silver fish the fishermen catch, and the big, slow, flat fish that live near the bottom, and a single dark eel that the boy can see from the terrace, coiling itself slowly across the mud. The fish are dying. The fish make small, wet sounds the boy has never heard before. The smell rises off the bay floor. The smell is the smell of harbour mud. The smell is the smell of sea-bottom things the boy has never smelled. The smell is sharp. The smell is wet. The smell is old. The smell mixes with the smell of the ash. The two smells together do not smell like anything the boy has ever smelled. His mother says quietly, "This is wrong." The fishermen on the terrace agree. The fishermen on the terrace are speaking quietly to each other and to anyone who will listen. The fishermen on the terrace say that the sea does not do this. The fishermen on the terrace say that the sea has never done this. The fishermen on the terrace say that one of them remembers his grandfather telling him about a time the sea did this many years ago, before any of them were born, and that what came after was bad. The boy looks out at the buoy, where there is no longer any bay. He looks out at the cloud above, where the bay used to be. The cloud is glowing across the entire other side of the water. The cloud is not glowing from one place. The cloud is glowing from many places along the line where the mountain used to be. The lights along the cloud are not still. The lights along the cloud move. The lights along the cloud move down. The lights along the cloud are moving down the slope of the mountain that the boy cannot see, like glowing water poured slowly over a roof. The boy is watching the lights move. His mother is also watching. The ground shakes harder than the ground has shaken yet tonight. The lamp in the boy's hand jumps. The lamp tilts. The lamp nearly falls. His mother grips his hand harder. His mother does not say anything. The fishermen on the terrace cry out. The neighbours on the terrace cry out. A child somewhere on the terrace begins to cry. The crying does not stop. The ground shakes again. This shake is longer. This shake does not stop quickly. This shake is the shake the boy has read about in the dispatches his uncle has kept in the wooden box on the shelf for 17 years. This is the shake that broke Pompeii in his uncle's 38th year. This shake is the same shake. This shake is bigger. The terrace stones move under his feet. The wall of the lower terrace cracks. The crack is the length of an arm. The crack opens, and then narrows, and then stays open. A stone falls from the top of the wall. The stone falls onto the path. The stone breaks on the path. His mother says quietly, "We have to go." The boy says, "Where?" His mother says, "Away from the wall." The boy and his mother walk to the open ground of the field beside the path. The lamp goes with them. The lamp does not go out. The boy has been holding the lamp carefully for hours. The boy is a good student. The field is full of people. The field is where the slaves from the villas and the fishermen from the harbour and the neighbours from along the path have gathered. The field is the only flat, open ground above the cliff. The field is the place to stand when the walls of the villas can no longer be trusted. The field is full of ash. The ash is now thick on the ground. The ash is now thick on the shoulders of everyone in the field. The ash is now in the boy's hair, in his mother's hair, on the lamp, on the rough wool of the cloak his mother is wearing over her sleeping dress. The ash has the smell of the bay floor mixed with the smell of struck flint. The ash falls slowly. The ash does not stop falling. The boy looks across the bay at the mountain he cannot see, and at the cloud above the mountain that is now glowing from many places at once, and at the lights that are still moving down the slopes of a mountain that is no longer a mountain. The boy says, "Where is Uncle?" His mother says, "I do not know." The boy says, "Is he alive?" His mother says, "I do not know." The boy holds his mother's hand. The night goes on. The elder is still on the cloth. The elder has not moved for a long time. The elder has been breathing slowly. The elder has asked the slave to read back to him the lines the slave has written. The slave has read them. The elder has nodded. The slave is afraid. The slave is afraid because the slave can hear the ground groaning beneath the cloth. The slave is afraid because the slave can see the cloud above the mountain glowing across the bay in a way the slave has never seen any cloud glow. The slave is afraid because the slave can see that the elder is having trouble breathing. The elder asks for a cup of water. The slave runs up the path to the villa. The slave reaches the courtyard. The household has not yet left. Pomponianus is gathering his children at the door. Pomponianus's wife is wrapping a small chest in a cloak. The slave runs through them. The slave goes to the kitchen. The slave fills a clay cup from the jar by the door. The water in the jar has ash on top. The slave skims the ash with a finger. The slave runs back down the path. The slave reaches the beach. The elder is still on the cloth. The elder has not moved. The elder is looking at the cloud above the mountain. The elder drinks the water. The elder drinks slowly. The elder hands the cup back to the slave. The elder says, "The air is becoming difficult." The slave nods. The elder says, "Write that down." The slave writes. The elder says, "The air is heavy. The air has the smell of sulphur. The lamps along the road behind the villa are going out, one by one, not from wind, but from the lack of air. I can see them going out from where I lie. They go out in the order they were lit." The slave writes. The elder says, "Tell my nephew that I crossed the bay because Rectina asked. Tell my nephew that the choice was correct." The slave writes. The elder says, "Tell my nephew to take care of his mother." The slave writes. The elder closes his eyes. The elder is still breathing. The elder is breathing more slowly now. The elder's chest rises. The elder's chest falls. The space between the rise and the fall is longer than it should be. The slave watches the chest. The slave does not look away. The elder opens his eyes once more. The elder is looking at the cloud above the mountain. The cloud is no longer above the mountain. The cloud is moving. The cloud is moving in a way the elder has not seen any cloud move. The cloud is pouring moving down the slope of the mountain across the bay. The cloud is moving fast. The cloud is glowing along its edge. The cloud is reaching the water. The elder sees the cloud reach the water across the bay. The elder sees the water along the far shore turn to steam. The steam rises. The steam is white. The steam mixes with the dark cloud above. The steam is the only white thing in the night. The elder is too far away to hear the sound the steam makes when it meets the water. The elder is too far away to hear the sound of the mountain pouring itself across the harbour, of a town on the far shore. The elder is too far away to hear anything from the far shore at all. The far shore from where the elder lies is silent. The far shore is silent because the far shore is not far enough away for sound to take this long to travel. The far shore is silent because there is no longer anything on the far shore that can make a sound. The elder does not know this. The elder sees the steam. The elder sees the cloud pouring. The elder thinks something. The elder does not say it. The elder closes his eyes. The elder breathes once more. The elder does not breathe again. The slave does not move. The slave kneels beside the cloth. The slave holds the stylus over the wax tablet. The slave does not write. The slave does not know what to write. The slave has not been told what to write when this happens. The slave looks up at the cloud. The cloud is now glowing the entire width of the bay. The slave looks at the elder. The elder is not breathing. The elder is 55. The slave folds his hands. The slave waits. The slave waits until first light. When the first light comes, the slave will gather the elder's body. The slave will carry the wax tablet up to the villa. The slave will be the one to ride north with the news. The slave will be the one who writes the line, "The nephew will read by a different lamp in a different room, many weeks from now." For the moment, the slave kneels. The slave kneels in the ash on the beach at Stabiae. The slave kneels until the morning that does not come comes. The boy and his mother are walking. The boy and his mother left the field above the cliff hours ago. The boy and his mother are now on the road that leads inland from Misenum. The boy and his mother are not alone. The road is full of people. The road is full of slaves and fishermen and neighbors and merchants and children and women with babies in their arms and old men carrying nothing and old women carrying everything. The road is full of the people of Misenum. The road is the road away from the bay. The road should be lit by now. The road should have the dawn on it. The dawn should be coming over the eastern hills. The dawn should be turning the grey of the night into the grey of the morning, into the gold of the early sun. The dawn is not coming. The eastern hills cannot be seen. The dawn is not on the hills because the hills are inside the cloud. The cloud has reached this far inland. The cloud is now everywhere. The cloud is the sky. The cloud is the morning. The cloud is the only weather there is. The lamp in the boy's hand has gone out. The lamp went out an hour ago. The lamp went out not because the oil ran low, but because the air around the lamp got thicker than the air the lamp needs to burn. The lamp simply got smaller and smaller, and finally was a small red spot in the wick that the boy could see in the dark. And then the spot was gone, and the lamp was a cold bronze thing in the boy's hand. The boy is still carrying the lamp. The boy's mother is still holding the boy's hand. The boy and his mother have been walking for hours. The boy and his mother are tired. The boy and his mother have not eaten since the dinner. The boy left half finished on the table when his mother first called him to the window. The boy is hungry. The boy does not say so. The boy is the nephew of his uncle. The boy is the son of his mother. The boy walks. The ash falls. The ash falls steadily. The ash falls the way snow falls, in a country the boy has only read about. The ash falls on his shoulders. The ash falls on the shoulders of his mother. The ash falls on the road. The road is now an ash road. The road is no longer the road of basalt stones the boy has walked on 1,000 times. The road is the same road. The road is also a different road. The road wears the cloud now. The ash makes a sound under the feet of the people walking. The sound is a soft sound. The sound is the sound of dry leaves underfoot. The sound is the sound of the entire road. All the people on it. All the feet. All the children's small feet. All the old men's slow feet. All the carts the wealthy have brought with them. All the horses that have been led because the horses will not be ridden in this. The sound is a quiet, long, shuffling sound. The sound is the sound of a city walking out of itself. The boy has not spoken to his mother in a long time. His mother has not spoken to the boy. They walk. The sky above the road brightens once. The sky brightens not with sunlight. The sky brightens with a long, deep flash from somewhere across the bay, from beyond the cloud, from inside the cloud, from a place the boy and his mother cannot see. The flash is the colour of the inside of a forge again. The flash is yellow at the centre and red at the edges. The flash lights the road for an instant. The flash lights the face of his mother for an instant. His mother looks tired. His mother looks like a woman whose brother is somewhere on the other side of a flash she does not understand. The flash fades. The road goes dark again. The boy and his mother walk. The boy thinks, walking, about the dispatches in the wooden box on the shelf in his uncle's room. The boy thinks about the morning of February, in the 9th year of the Emperor Nero. The boy thinks about Pompeii falling on its side. The boy thinks about his uncle being 38 years old that year and reading the dispatches by a different lamp. The boy thinks that the dispatches were read in a room that no longer exists because the villa shook hard enough at this night to crack at least one wall, and the boy does not yet know whether the room with the wooden box still has a roof. The boy will not see the wooden box again. The boy does not know this yet. The boy walks. His mother walks. The road walks. The dawn does not come. 3 days pass. 3 days pass slowly. The boy and his mother walk inland on the first day. The boy and his mother shelter in a barn on the second day. The boy and his mother walk back toward Misenum on the third day, with many of the people they walked away with, when word comes along the road that the cloud is lifting and the wind has turned, and the bay can be approached again. The bay can be approached. The bay is not the bay. The bay is the bay, with a 1/4 foot of ash on top of every surface that ash can fall on. The harbour stones are grey instead of black. The cypress trees behind the villa are bent under the weight of the ash. The roofs of the villas along the path are sagging where they have not collapsed entirely. The garden walls have come down in many places. The fishermen's huts are gone. The fishermen are gone. The fishermen who walked inland with the boy and his mother are alive. The fishermen who chose to stay with their boats are not. The boy and his mother reach the villa. The villa stands. The villa has lost roof tiles. The villa has cracked across the back wall. The villa has its shutters knocked off in 2 rooms. The villa is the villa. The room with the wooden box is the room that is still here. The boy walks through the villa with his mother. The boy walks slowly. The boy walks past every door the boy has known. The boy walks into the room where his uncle reads. The room is empty. The table is still there. The candle is gone. The wax pool is gone from the bronze stand. The bronze stand is in the corner where it was tipped over by the shaking. The scrolls on the floor have been weighed down by ash. The wooden box on the low shelf is still there, sealed again with the wax the boy's mother sealed it with 17 years ago. The box has not been touched. The boy stands in the doorway. The boy looks at the box. The boy does not enter the room. His mother stands behind him. A messenger arrives at the villa later that day. The messenger is a slave. The slave is a slave from Stabiae. The slave has ridden north for 2 days. The slave has walked the last hours when the slave's horse could no longer breathe in the ash. The slave is dirty. The slave is exhausted. The slave is alive. The slave hands the boy a wax tablet. The boy takes the tablet. The boy opens the tablet. The wax has a long entry on it. The wax has the slave's neat hand on it. The wax has the last words of Pliny the Elder on it. The wax has the line, "Tell my nephew to take care of his mother." The wax has the line, "Tell my nephew that the choice was correct." The boy reads the tablet. The boy reads it slowly. The boy reads it twice. The boy closes the tablet. The boy does not weep. The boy will weep later. The boy will weep many times across his long life. The boy will not weep tonight. The boy goes to find his mother. The boy finds his mother in a room where the wooden box sits on the shelf. The boy gives the tablet to his mother. His mother sits down at the table. His mother reads the tablet. His mother does not weep either. She sets the tablet down beside the wooden box on the shelf. She places her hand on the box. She does not break the seal. The boy stands beside her. Outside the window, the bay is silver again for the first time in 3 days. Outside the window, the mountain is across the water. The mountain has changed shape. The mountain is shorter. The mountain has lost its top. The mountain is still there. The mountain has stopped speaking. The boy will live to be old. The boy will write down what he saw at the window with his mother, and what the slave wrote on the tablet at the beach at Stabiae, and what the road inland sounded like under his feet. The boy's letters will outlast everything else in this room. The boy's letters will be the reason any of this is remembered. But tonight, the boy only stands beside his mother in a room with a wooden box and looks across a bay at a mountain that has finished saying what it had to say. The night is quiet. The night will be quiet for 1800 years. A man is walking up a road. The road is in southern Italy. The road is in the year 1863. The road climbs a low hill. The road has olive trees on either side. The olive trees are old. The olive trees have grown in this soil for many generations. The man walking up the road has not been to this place before. The man has read about this place all of his adult life. The man is 40 years old. The man's name is Giuseppe Fiorelli. The man is a scholar. The man has been appointed by the new Italian government to take charge of what is here. The man carries a leather case in one hand. The case has letters in it. The case has the orders from Naples in it. The case has the man's own notebook in it. The notebook has many pages of writing. Most of the writing is questions. The road ends at a wall. The wall is not a wall the way modern walls are walls. The wall is the top of a wall. The bottom of the wall is in the ground. Most of the wall is in the ground. What stands above the ground is a row of broken stone that runs across the brow of the hill. The stone is the colour of the ash that fell here 1800 years ago. The stone has olive roots growing through it. A small gate has been cut into the wall by men with shovels in the last 100 years. The man walks through the gate. The man stops on the other side of the gate. The man sets down his leather case. The man looks. He's standing in a city. The city is not whole. The city is open, like a wound that has been left open for too long. The city has streets and corners and the lower walls of houses. The city has the worn ruts of cartwheels in the basalt of its main roads. The ruts the carts wore down across 200 years of traffic before the day the carts stopped. The city has the threshold stones of doorways. The city has the gutter channels where the water once ran. The city has all of these things. And the city is empty. The city is also full of holes. The holes are the work of the men who came here before this man. The men who came here before this man came with shovels and with greed. The men who came here before this man came down through the layers of ash and earth from the 18th century onward, when the wells of the local farmers had begun to hit walls that should not be in the soil, and the kings of Naples had ordered the soil broken open to see what was underneath. The men who came before had drilled tunnels. The men who came before had taken what they could carry. The men who came before had taken frescoes off walls with chisels, mosaics off floors with crowbars, statues off pedestals, bronze fittings off doors. The men who came before had taken everything that looked like treasure. The men who came before had missed everything that mattered. The holes are what the men who came before left behind. The holes are the wounds in the ash, where the treasure hunters' tunnels run. The holes are the rooms that have been opened from the ceiling, rather than the door. The floors that have been dropped through, rather than walked across. The walls that have been cut through, rather than entered. The man with the leather case looks at the holes. The man does not say anything. The man has read about these tunnels for years. The man has read the reports written by the men who came before. The man has read the catalogues of what was taken. The man has read what was sold to museums in Naples and London and Paris. The man knows what is missing. The man knows what was never recorded, because the men who came before did not think to record it. The man also knows what nobody has yet thought to look for. The man picks up his case. The man walks down into the city. The olive trees do not move. The wind does not move. The afternoon is warm. The city is quiet under the sun, the way the city has been quiet for 18 centuries. Under all the suns it has not been able to see. The man's footsteps are soft on the basalt. The man has come to find the dead. The man walks the streets of the buried city. The man walks the streets the way a scholar walks the streets. Slowly, stopping often. The man stops at the corners. The man stops at the door thresholds. The man stops at the cisterns. The man kneels at one cistern and looks down into it. The bottom is dry. The bottom has ash in it. The bottom has the broken neck of a clay jar in it, half buried. The man writes in his notebook. The man writes the location of the cistern. The man writes that the cistern has not been entered by the men who came before. The man writes that the cistern will be excavated properly when his crew arrives next week. The man keeps walking. the man stops at a house. The house is one of many along this street. The house has lost its roof. The house has lost its second story. The house has the lower walls of the ground floor. The house has the threshold stone with grooves in it, where the wooden door swung. The house has the small mosaic at the threshold, the mosaic of a dog with a chain, the mosaic that says in Latin, "Beware of the dog." The man kneels at the threshold. The man traces the mosaic with one finger. The man notices that one tessera of the dog's eye has been pried out. The man notices that the pry mark is fresh. The pry mark is the work of the men who came before. The men who came before had taken the eye of the dog. The men who came before had thought the eye was worth more than the rest of the mosaic. The men who came before had been wrong. The man writes in his notebook. The man writes the address of the house. The man writes the missing tessera. The man writes that the house is the house of the tragic poet, named for the mosaic of a poet found in the next room many years ago, taken to Naples many years ago, displayed in Naples many years ago. The man writes that the rest of the house is still here. The man stands. The man walks on. The man walks through the forum of the city. The forum is a long open space. The forum has the bases of statues along its edges. The bases are empty. The statues were the first things the men who came before had taken. The forum has the columns of a temple at its northern end. The columns are broken. The columns are leaning. The columns have not been moved. The men who came before had not been able to carry away columns this size. And so, the columns are still where the men who came before had found them. The man writes the forum. The man writes the column positions. The man writes that the forum will be the first major survey area when his crew arrives. The man walks on. The man passes the temple of Jupiter at the north end of the forum. The man passes the long covered walkway where merchants used to sell to the wealthy. The man passes the wide street that leads east toward the city gate that faces the mountain. The man stops at the gate. The gate is an arch. The gate is mostly buried. The gate has been excavated up to a man's shoulder height. The gate looks out through the layer of soil still pressing against it toward the slope of the mountain. The mountain is across the open country. The mountain is the same mountain. The mountain is shorter than it was. The mountain has lost its top. The mountain has been short for 1800 years. The man stands at the gate. The man does not write in his notebook for a long time. The man looks at the mountain. The mountain looks back at the man the way the mountain has looked at every man who has stood at this gate since the gate was first cut into the wall by the workmen who built this city. The mountain does not move. The mountain has finished speaking. The man speaks to the mountain in his head. The man tells the mountain that the men who came before did not understand. The man tells the mountain that the men who came before came for treasure. The man tells the mountain that he, this man with the leather case and the notebook, has come for something else. The man has come for the holes in the ash that are not holes. The man has noticed something the men who came before did not notice. The man has been noticing it for weeks. The man noticed it the first day on the site, when one of the workmen broke through the ash wall of a small storeroom, and the man saw, in the wall of ash itself, a depression. The depression was the shape of a curled-up hollow. The depression had a thin layer of ash crust along its inner surface that was harder than the ash around it. The depression had nothing inside it. The depression was the size of a person. The man had stared at the depression. The man had stared until the workmen had grown uncomfortable. The man had stared until the foreman had asked quietly whether the master wanted to break through the wall and find the next room. The man had said no. The man had said leave it. The man had said, do not touch the depression. The man had walked away. The man had returned. The man had walked back. The man had looked at the depression every day for a week. The man had thought about what the depression was, the ash that fell on the city 1800 years ago. The man had read, had fallen wet. The ash had been carried on hot air and steam, and the heavier gas the mountain had poured down its slopes that morning. The ash had reached every room in the city. The ash had filled every space. The ash had filled the streets. The ash had filled the gutters. The ash had filled the air the people were breathing when the people stopped breathing. The ash had filled the spaces around the bodies of the people who had fallen where they had fallen. The ash had set hard. 1800 years had then passed. The bodies inside the ash had not stayed bodies. The flesh had gone. The cloth had gone. The leather of the sandals had gone. The hair had gone. Even the bones, in most cases, had gone soft and crumbled and merged into the surrounding earth. But the ash had stayed. The ash had kept the shape. The ash had been moulded around the body in the moment of the body's stillness. And the ash had held that mould across the centuries the body itself had taken to disappear. The space where the body had been was a void. The void was the exact shape of the body that had once filled it. The void was the body, except the body was no longer there. The man understood, that week, what nobody before him had understood. The void was the body. The man returned to the site the next morning with a bucket of plaster. The plaster was wet. The plaster was the same plaster used to repair the walls of houses in Naples. The plaster was thin enough to pour. The plaster was thick enough to hold its shape. The plaster had been mixed by the man himself in the courtyard of his lodgings the night before. The man instructed the workman to be careful. The man instructed the workman to chip a small hole at the highest point of the depression, just large enough to admit the lip of the bucket. The workman chipped the hole. The workmen were nervous. The workmen had not done this before. Nobody had done this before. The man poured the plaster into the hole. The plaster ran. The plaster filled the void. The plaster found every curve and corner and finger and toe of the empty space. The plaster found the folds of cloth that had once been there. The plaster found the small hollow at the throat. The plaster found the inside curl of one hand. The plaster filled the void entirely. The plaster set. The man waited. The man waited the rest of that day. The man waited the next day. The man waited until the plaster was hard. The man waited 2 more days for the plaster to fully cure inside the ash. On the 5th day, the man instructed the workman to remove the ash. The workman worked slowly. The workman worked with small picks. The workman chipped the ash away from the plaster, the way a sculptor chips marble away from a finished statue, except the sculptor in this case had been the mountain, and the statue had been a person. The ash came away in flakes. The ash came away in chunks. The ash came away in long, curved pieces that fell to the stone floor of the storeroom and broke into smaller pieces. The man knelt beside the workman as they worked. The man brushed the loose ash away with his own hands. The shape emerged. The shape was a man. The shape was a man lying on his side. The shape had his knees drawn up against his chest. The shape had one arm under his head. The shape had the other arm bent at the elbow, the hand near the mouth, the fingers curled as if the man had been holding something to his face. A cloth, a piece of his own cloak, the thin hem of a shirt, anything he could put between his lungs and the air. The man with the plaster stood up. The man looked at the shape on the floor of the storeroom. The man did not write anything in his notebook for the rest of the day. The technique works. The man uses the technique on other voids, in other rooms, in the weeks that follow. The man uses the technique carefully. The man uses the technique on the depressions the workmen have already noted. The man uses the technique on the new depressions the workmen find as the excavation progresses, working outward from the forum, through the houses along the main streets, into the smaller alleys behind them. The man works through the autumn. The man does not always succeed. The man pours plaster into one void and finds, when the ash is chipped away, that the plaster has cracked along the spine of the figure inside, that the figure breaks into 3 pieces when lifted. The man pours plaster into another void and finds that the plaster did not reach one of the legs, that the leg is hollow inside the cast, that the figure stands on one leg of plaster and one leg of empty air. The man writes these failures down. The man learns. The man adjusts. The man becomes more careful with each pour. In the late autumn, the workmen find a void in the courtyard of a house near the main gate. The void is small. The void is not the shape of a person. The void is the shape of something smaller, with 4 legs, with a longer body, with what looks like a length of something thin, running from one part of the void to a fixed point in the wall behind it. The workmen call for the man. The man comes. The man kneels at the void. The man looks at the shape of the void. The man understands what the void is before he pours the plaster. The man tells the workmen to chip the access hole at the highest point. The workmen chip. The man pours. The man waits. When the plaster has cured and the ash has been chipped away, the man kneels again beside what the workmen have uncovered. The shape is a dog. The dog is on its back. The dog has its legs in the air. The dog has its body twisted along the spine, as if it had been trying to roll over, or had been trying to turn around, or had been trying to escape something it could not escape. The dog has a collar around its neck. The collar is a cast of the void where the collar had been. The collar has a length of cast plaster running from the collar to a small lump in the wall of the courtyard. The small lump in the wall is the cast of the iron ring the dog had been chained to. The dog had been chained to the courtyard wall on the day the mountain spoke. The dog had been chained when the family fled. The dog had not been able to follow. The dog had twisted itself against the chain the way a dog twists when a dog cannot escape a thing the dog can feel coming. The dog had died there. The man kneels in the courtyard for a long time. The workmen do not speak. The workmen have learned by now when the man with the plaster needs to be left alone. The workmen step away. The workmen go to work on the next room of the house. The man kneels. The man thinks, kneeling there in the courtyard, about a letter he read as a young man in Naples. The letter was written by a man who had been 18 years old on the night the mountain spoke. The letter was written many years after the event to a Roman historian who had asked the 18-year-old, by then a much older man, what he had seen at the bay when his uncle did not come home. The letter described the cloud. The letter described the column of the cloud. The letter described the way the cloud had reached across the bay and turned the afternoon into the dark. The letter had not described this dog. The letter could not have described this dog. The man who wrote the letter had never been on the slope of the mountain. The man who wrote the letter had been at Misenum, watching the cloud arrive from across the bay, while the dog was twisting on its chain in this courtyard. The man who wrote the letter had not known about the dog. Nobody outside the dog's family had known about the dog. The dog had died alone, but the man who wrote the letter had described the column. And the column was the thing that had killed the dog. The man kneeling in the courtyard, with the plaster cast of the dog in front of him, and the letter from the 18-year-old in his head, understands what the void in the ash was. The void was the shape of a soul leaving a body. The void was the moment the dog had been alive, translated into the negative space of its absence. The void was what the 18-year-old at Misenum had written about 1800 years ago, when he wrote about the column of the cloud and the way the world had gone dark. The 18-year-old had been the witness from one shore. The dog had been the witness from the other. Neither had survived. Neither had spoken. Neither had been heard. But the 18-year-old had written, and the dog had been chained. And the 18-year-old's letter and the dog's chained together with a testimony that had reached this courtyard, this autumn, this man with the plaster. The man stands. The man writes in his notebook for the rest of the afternoon. The work continues. The work continues through the years that follow. The work continues after the man with the plaster has gone grey. The work continues after the man has trained a generation of younger men in his method. The work continues into the long century after the man's own death. The work continues today. The casts emerge. The casts emerge from the ash, one at a time. The casts emerge slowly. The casts emerge from courtyards and bedrooms and kitchens and alleyways, and the long galleries of the city's wealthy and the small back rooms of the city's poor. The casts emerge from every level of the buried town. The casts emerge wherever the void in the ash has been recognized in time. There is a family in the casts. The family is 4 people. The family is a man, a woman, and 2 children. The family was found together in a small room at the back of a house near the eastern gate. The family had been holding each other when the air had become impossible to breathe. The man was on his knees beside the woman. The woman was lying on her side. The woman had her arm around the older child. The older child had her arm around the smaller child. The smaller child had her face pressed into the older child's chest. The family had died in this arrangement. The family had been cast in this arrangement. The family is still in this arrangement. There is a boy running in the casts. The boy is alone. The boy was found at the edge of the forum, in a side street. The boy had been mid-stride. The boy had 1 foot forward. The boy had 1 foot pushed off the basalt. The boy had his head turned back over his shoulder, looking at something behind him, looking at something nobody can see anymore, looking at whatever it was that had been close enough behind him that he had felt he needed to look. The boy had not made it to the forum. The boy is still mid-stride. The boy is still looking back. There is a man at a gate. The man is at one of the smaller side gates of the city. The man had been running when he stopped. The man had stopped because the air at the gate had been worse than the air inside the city, not better. The man had raised his hands. The man had raised his hands in front of his face. The way a man raises his hands when he is trying to see through smoke, or trying to push something away, or trying to greet a god he has not believed in for many years. The man's hands are still raised. The man's hands have not lowered in 1800 years. The casts continue. The casts are now in the museum at Naples. The casts are now in cases at the dig site itself. The casts have been studied and photographed and copied and written about. The casts have been seen by millions of visitors. The casts have not moved. The casts are in the same arrangement the people inside them were in when the air became impossible. The dead are visible again. The dead are visible because a man with a leather case and a bucket of plaster walked up a road in southern Italy in the year 1863 and saw, in the wall of a small storeroom, a depression. The dead are visible because 18 centuries earlier, a boy of 18 at Misenum had watched the cloud cross the bay and had written down in a letter to a historian what he had seen. The dead are visible because the two men who never knew each other, who lived in different countries in different centuries, with different gods and different languages, had both refused to look away. The witness is complete. The mountain has finished speaking. The dead have been given the shape they were taken from. The night is quiet again. Sleep on it. History continues. The old stories have been told 1,000 times.